Hi everyone, my name is Rob. I decided to make this video today because when I talk to people about my past, I can't help but mention the fact that I was a Buddhist monk in the Thai forest tradition for almost 10 years, and that is something that many people, unsurprisingly, find interesting. I thought it would be great if I could just point them towards a video that explained everything so that I wouldn't have to explain it myself to every person I meet. So that's why I'm making this video today. I first started learning about Buddhism when I was about 18, maybe 19. I just started reading about it at random on the internet one day, and something just clicked with me, and I was very inspired. And so I just started reading more and more books. One book I came across was In the Buddha's Words by Bhikkhu Bodhi, which I found very illuminating, inspiring. And once I read that book, then the idea of becoming a monk started to germinate in my mind, and I started to watch more and more videos of monks on YouTube, and I found them to be very inspiring, just people who had none of the things that normally make people in the world happy, and yet here they are, the happiest, most content people, seemingly, that I've ever come across. So I looked up monasteries in the tradition that I was interested in at the time, which was the Ajahn tradition in the Thai forest tradition. And I found out about Abhayagiri, so I contacted them, asking them if I could come and stay. And at that point, I was 20. This was in December 2011. And I knew that I couldn't come and stay during their winter retreat period between January and March. So I contacted them the following year and set up a stay in June. So I went for my first stay at Abhayagiri when I was 21, stayed there for 10 days, and I was very inspired. I was still interested in becoming a monk at that point, so went back home, as you have to do, and then scheduled another stay for a month between August and September. And I was still inspired, still wanted to come back after that. So I came back in early December of 2012 with the plan to stay on and serve their winter retreat. And that's what I did. I stayed on, and unfortunately for me, I was kind of hard-headed and maybe not the ideal candidate at the time, and I made it known that I was not thrilled to be in the kitchen. And that's a big thing for lay guys staying at Abhayagiri, especially for the guys hoping to ordain as anagarkas. The kitchen is a very big deal at the monastery, and so I think I rubbed some people the wrong way, maybe. So I ended up having to wait until July 31st to ordain as an anagarka. So I was at the monastery for about 7 months before I was able to ordain. For most people, it's like 5 months or so. However, before ordaining as an anagarka, a monk came to visit from Thailand, Ajahn Dtun. He gave Q&As over the course of several days, and then gave one Dhamma talk on one of the Uposatha nights. And I found him to be the most inspiring person I had ever met. And I knew at that time that I had to go and stay with this monk. And it was at that time that I started to really apply myself in studying Thai, because at his monastery there weren't really a whole lot of Westerners there, and I knew that I had to know Thai if I was going to do well there. So I started studying Thai, ordained as an anagarka July 31st, 2013. Did pretty well in the kitchen, actually. By the end of that year, I wasn't so averse to it. And then in July of 2014, I was able to ordain as a novice monk, as a samanera. And at that time, Ajahn Sumedho happened to be staying at the monastery. So I got to hang out a bit with him, offered him a massage, as monks do. And then in June of 2015, I took my full ordination as a bhikkhu, with Lumpal Pasano as my preceptor. And during my early years as a monk at Abhayagiri, I had the chance to meet quite a few impressive monks who were coming to visit. Like Lumpal Sumedo, I think I met him a second time. And then Lumpal Liam, the abbot of Wat Nong Papong. There was Ajahn Suchito, Ajahn Jayasaro, Ajahn Pricha, the abbot of a monastery in Italy, and Lumpal Piak as well, who was actually a good friend of Ajahn Dan. And Ajahn Sripani as well, because he came to translate for Lumpal Piak. But then in 2016, Ajahn Dan came to visit Abhayagiri again, and I had the chance to ask him if I could go and stay with him at Wat Bunyawat the following year, when I would have the chance to go somewhere of my choosing before entering my third reigns as a monk. And he said yes, and so I was super excited, kept up my Thai studies. I was super diligent, like I was putting in anywhere from 1 to 3 hours of work, like every day, studying Thai. And so in May of 2017, I had the opportunity to go to Wat Bunyawat and stay with Ajahn Dan, and that was a great experience. Wasn't a huge fan of the heat and the humidity of Bunyawat for sure, and the mosquitoes were terrible. But overall, it was a great experience. I had the chance to go and stay at a branch monastery of Bunyawat for just over a year as well, Wat Kawapat in Rayong with Ajahn Pratip. While staying at Wat Kawapat, I had the opportunity to go with Lumpal Pasano, who comes from America every year to visit people in Thailand. Had a chance to go with him to pay respects to the Sangaraja. However, during the Pansa of 2018, which was my second year in Thailand, during my fourth Pansa, I had these really strong feelings of wanting to have a relationship come up, and I was suffering with them a lot during the 3 months of the rains retreat. And it got to the point eventually where I decided that I was going to disrobe, and I had the day picked out for the following year. And so when Ajahn Pratip, the abbot of Kawapat, took all the monks to pay respects to Lumpal Pasano, who was staying at a cave in Thailand, I told Lumpal how I was feeling, told him I wanted to disrobe, and that I would like a ticket to go back to Abhayagiri. And he said okay. And in the meantime, just keep practicing. But yeah, sure, I can go back to Abhayagiri and disrobe. So I went back to Kawapat and did my best to practice. But I got very sick at the end of that Pansa, and I was the only person at the monastery who could do the sewing for the lower robe that we were going to sew for that katina to offer to the abbot of the monastery. And so, even sick as I was, I had to do that whole sewing by myself. But then in the evening, after everything was done, and I was sitting down at a table with all the other monks who were there at the monastery, just having tea, I had this feeling come up, like, these are really good people. I love being around people like this. I don't want to leave this. And that feeling of wanting to disrobe just completely left me. And so I decided to stay on. But I already had the ticket back to Abhayagiri at this point. And so I went back to Abhayagiri. I visited my mom back in Maryland, because I was already in America at the time. But shortly after going back, this desire to return to Thailand came up. And so at the end of 2019, I went back to Thailand. I think it was November 2019, which was just before COVID. So I lucked out there. And during that time, during the second trip, I had a lot of really great experiences. I got to be an attendant monk for Ajahn for quite a while, which is a very high honor. And after spending a year at Bunyawat, I went to stay at Wat Kalpat again, because I really like that place as well. And after a short time there, I had an opportunity to go and stay at Dtao Dum, which is deep in a jungle in a very large national park in Thailand on the border with Burma. Ajahn Siripanyo is the abbot there, and I loved Dtao Dum. It's the most pristine piece of nature I've ever seen, certainly that I've ever been in. It just has very basic buildings. All of the monks stay on these small bamboo platforms, and you just hang like an umbrella, large umbrella that you drape a mosquito net over. And that's your shelter at Dtao Dum, in this place that has elephants and tigers and monkeys and leopards and giant snakes all over the place. Every day I would walk from my little bamboo platform out in the jungle on this like plateau with streams running all over the place, walk down to the meal hall where we would receive our food, and after the meal, which was at about like 8 o'clock in the morning, then you have to walk back up. Well, the walk back up to where I was staying is almost an hour and a half, almost entirely uphill as well, like climbing up a very steep hill. And yet, if it had been possible for me to stay in Dtao Dum full time without ever having to leave and deal with visas and stuff, I would have probably stayed a monk. Dtao Dum is the greatest place on this planet, bar none. But I couldn't stay. Oh well. So I had to spend Pansa somewhere, and I didn't feel like going back to Wat Bunyawat at the time. So I stayed at another nearby branch monastery called Wat Suwanpa Metatam with a good group of monks. And during that Pansa, because it was COVID, we actually didn't have to go out on our daily alms round every day for like the first 2 months or so. So it was like being on retreat full time, which was great. Again, however, towards the end of that Pansa, some of the old feelings from my fourth Pansa when I wanted to disrobe started to come up again. And I felt like I was kind of able to get past it for the most part. But I still wanted to see my mom again, because at this point it had been like 2 years since I had last seen her. So I went back to Abhayagiri again. Went back in December. And shortly after I returned, then the feelings of wanting a relationship started to come up very, very strongly. And it was just impossible to resist. And so in March of 2022, I decided to disrobe. And that was the end of my life as a monk. I decided to go back to stay with my family in Maryland, help my mom out, and everything after that is a different story. But this is basically the short biography of my life as a monk. So I hope that this video was of interest to some. Perhaps some of you are thinking about ordaining. It's a great thing to do, but it might not be exactly what you think it is. You might have some stuff come up that you aren't expecting. Just go into it with eyes wide open. And for those of you who have no interest at all in ordaining, I hope that my experience as a monk is interesting to you in some way. Bae and I will keep making videos to put up on YouTube, so please like and subscribe and keep following us in future videos. Bye.